persons having anything to do before the honorable, the justices of the appeals court, now sitting at Boston, within and for the Commonwealth. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is open. Please be seated.
Good morning and welcome to the Appeals Court. I'm Judge Milkey. To my right is Judge Singh. To my left is Judge Brennan. And we are your panel for the case we are hearing today. Let's begin with the swearing in of the interpreter, please.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Lee. I just want to say from the outset, if I am speaking too long or my colleagues are speaking too long or otherwise making your job difficult, please feel free to bring it to our attention. We are here for a single matter today, 2022 P0714. The case is CHEN versus XING, and my apologies if I have mispronounced any names. We are extending the time today because of the need to use an interpreter, so there will be a half hour per side. The parties may not need that time, which is fine. I do want to emphasize that once Ms. Chen is done at the podium, there is no rebuttal. So we will go a half hour with the appellant and then a half hour with the appellee. So the floor is yours, Ms. Chen. If you could come to the microphone. And Ms. Lee will stand beside you.
May I start?
Yes.
尊敬的法官，我想说一下我和陈金荣之间的这场婚姻的过程。从一开始呢，这场婚姻就是一场。
So I would like to present or give a little background about the relationship I have with Mr. Chen. So this was started as
我和陈金荣的婚姻是相亲认识的，然后我们按照我们的传统，我们相亲的时候就是对方先提一下自己的基本情况。
Okay, so I met Mr. Chen through it's kind of a costume, like kind of a blind date, which with the purpose of getting married. So we met according to the custom. We provide each other's basic background and information.
这些基本情况就是包括我们各自的年龄、学历、家庭背景、资产、个人的资产以及其他的一些情况。
So the basic background information we exchange usually be involved with the age, our educational background, the personal access that we own, and other stuff as well.
我当时报给陈金荣以及报给媒婆的情况都是我的真实情况，而陈金荣报的情况全部都是虚假的。
What I told Mr. Chen are all actual and real, accurate on my side. However, Mr. Chen, the information provided from Mr. Chen, kind of lying or fraudulent.
Okay, before we go on, I just want to emphasize
Okay, 在我们这里继续的之前，我要在这里强调，
that our role as an appellate court
我们作为上诉庭的那个工作，
is not to resolve the facts.
不是来去重新厘定你们在这个案情里面的那些所谓的事实。
That is the job of the trial court.
这个是庭审，就是那种官方就审诉庭他们的工作。
And your argument in this case
那你在这里要做的那个 argument 那个庭辩，
is that the plaintiff cannot bring the claim because of a state law.
你在这里呢要注重的重点就是说 ，plaintiff 原来的原告，他不能够带过来或者是不能够带上来的，是因为州法律的某个原因。
And we understand that each side has very different views of the facts.
我们很明白，双方你们作为原告、被告，你们的观点是非常不一致的、不一样的，有你们自己的观点的。
So, please.
好，有这样的一个理解，请你继续。
不太清楚他在什么意思。
I am a little confused about what exactly does that mean. I'm a little confused about what exactly does that mean to
Well-
what you just explained.
Sure. We understand
好，我们是理解
that part of your argument
哪部分你在这里想要阐说的，
is that you are not to blame.
就是说你是没有过错，你不应该被说你是有错的那方。
And that you carried out your part of the bargain.
那你说在这里呢，你已经是尽了自己就是你那方那个义务或者责任的。
Now, Mr. Chen has a different view of this.
陈先生当然在他的那个角度，他说他也有自己的观点。
But we are not here today to resolve that factual dispute.
但是呢，我们作为上诉庭的法官在这里，今天并不是要去来调解或者调和你们在这些不同观点里面的那个要怎么样调和，我们不做这个工作。
So the question we are facing is whether this lawsuit is barred by law.
我在这里呢，我们的工作就是要去去决定这一个的诉讼，你们这个案子的诉讼是否因为这个法律造成了一个什么的一个障碍。
And Mr. Chen's argument, in short, is, and his lawyer will have an opportunity to correct me if I misstate it.
OK， 那陈先生那边呢？因为他有那个律师，如果我下来所说的不对的话，他可以就是他的那个律师能够来纠正我。
Is that even though lawsuits to enforce a marriage contract are generally forbidden,
那他那个的说法就是说，虽然在法律上面来去强制执行婚姻并不是说有这样的一个控制或者是禁止。
there is an exception for what is known as a conditional gift.
但是呢，有一个的例外的地方，他们在术语里面，这个法律术语里面说 conditional gift， 就是有条件性的礼物。
And the argument here is that the bride price is analogous to an engagement ring.
那他在这里呢，他的意思就是说，这个嫁妆，就是说到那个婚戒，
And that it was given with the understanding that the marriage would go forward.
就是他那个婚戒给出去，就是双方有一个默认，就是这样的婚姻会持续的，会发生的那样的。
So the argument is that the marriage did not go forward, and he would argue without fault by him, therefore he gets the money back.
所以他们那边的 argument 那个辩论就是说，因为婚姻并没有继续，所以呢，婚戒就没有了。原来他这个说要给出来，是因为大家默认婚姻要继续的，因为这个原因没有继续，所以他有权收回那个钱。
首先我要说一下婚戒是已经还给他了。
So I would just wanted to tell in advance that the marriage ring, the ring has been returned to him.
那个婚戒是他当时给了我2颗婚戒，那2个婚戒总共就$10钱。
$10。
对，只有$10钱。
He actually gave me 2 rings, and each of them cost $10.
然后就是还有一笔钱是按照我们的传统习俗是一笔彩礼钱。
And another amount of money, according to the Chinese custom, is called the marriage gift or dowry or something like the bride money.
这笔钱按照我们的风俗是，我们在结婚那一天，我的父母是要给我一半当嫁妆给我带过去的。当时我也已经带过去，并不是我带过去，是他因为担心我父母不给我这笔嫁妆，他当时就没有把这笔彩礼钱全额给我父母，而是结婚那天直接给了我。
So, according to the Chinese custom, that amount of money, the bride money, according to the custom, is half of that money would be returning with the bride on the wedding day to the husband's family. However, because he was afraid or concerned that my parents would not be willing to return or do it according to the custom to give the 50 or half of the money back. So what he did was giving me half of the money on the wedding day.
然后是我们的婚姻之所以失败，完全是他的责任，我是一直都愿意跟他继续这段婚姻的。
And that's why, in my view, the reason why our marriage is a failure is because I think it's 100% responsibility on him. Because as what I do, I always do 100% what I should do.
我们2个婚姻没办法持续，主要是有2个比较大的矛盾，一个是
And for the failure, the reason why our marriage did not work, there are 2 major reasons. Number 1,
第一个矛盾是因为我的嫁妆里面没有福州2套成立的房子，当时结婚那一天，他
hold on, can you slow down? Sorry. What was it again?
就是第一个矛盾是我没有2套福州成立的房子当嫁妆，这一点他们家人他以及他的父母对我极其的不满意。
First, because my family only offered 2 real estate properties as part of my dowry, and which is Mr. Chen's family is very unhappy or disappointed.
这一点完全不能怪我，因为在我们第一次相亲、第一次见面的时候，他就问我在福州城里有没有房子，我当时就跟他很明确的说了，我在福州没有房子，我在中国没有任何一套房子。但是
It wasn't my fault because on the day we met each other, quote unquote, the blind date, when he asked me, do I have real estate properties in China, I've already told him that I do not have any real estate properties in China, in Fuzhou.
第二个重要的矛盾是因为他完全不能过性生活，而且除了不能过性生活以外，他根本就连基本的亲密的行为都没有的。
And the second reason is because he cannot perform or having a sexual life or intimate relationship with me at all.
一方面是他一直拒绝沟通，一直躲避着这个话题；另一方面是他的爸爸一直怪我，一直责骂我怀不上孩子，害得他们家断子绝孙。
And for that reason, actually, he tried to avoid to discuss about this problem. And because we did not really have a intimate life or sexual life, his parents, his father was actually putting the blame on me, accusing me or blame me for not being able to give them a grandchild.
这个矛盾也是主要都是由他，因为这种有这么重大的疾病，他在相亲的时候就应该提前说。如果他提前说的话，我不可能答应跟他结婚的。
It is actually a lie or a fault 100% on him because this, if he is suffering such a serious illness or have not the ability to perform sex, he should have told me on the day that we met. If I would know that he is unable to perform sex, that I would not accept him as my husband at all.
Okay, I do want to return to the legal issue of conditional gift, but I want to give, if there's a third reason.
好，我在这里强调，你要回来这个我们的重点就是说个conditional gift， 就是有条件性的礼物的那一点。不过我想知道你还有没有说第三个的原因？
有。
Yes, I have third reason.
我在跟他办完结婚酒席之后，在他家生活了将近2个月。这2个月，我觉得我好像生活在地狱里一样。
And after our wedding ceremony, I had lived in his house for 2 months, and for these 2 months of life, I was feeling like I was living in hell.
首先是他家里的窗户是全部用各种工具封闭上，而且封闭了7、8层。
First, the windows are all sealed up. I would say at least 80% sealed up in his house.
然后他家一天20小时都是黑的。
And in 24 hours, it's all dark inside the house.
然后他不断的对我有各种的语言暴力，总是用各种侮辱性的话来骂我。
And in this 2 months period, he's been verbally abused toward me.
还有就是他家里的不知道为什么，就是手机到了他家里就是完全没有信号的。
And for some reason, all the cellular signals are all blocked out in his house.
这一点让我觉得非常非常没有安全感。
And I was feeling very insecure because there's no way that you can make any calls out.
So if we can return to the conditional gift issue.
好，我们要再重新回来这个 conditional gift 的那个重点，有条件性的礼物这一
So
点。
why is the payment in contemplation of the marriage not a conditional gift?
就是说，为什么你觉得他的那个 payment 那个的钱给你，不应该是跟这个所谓的婚姻所谓的默认婚姻要期续的那个不应该是这样挂钩？
他给我这笔彩礼钱是跟婚姻挂钩的。
It is the money that he should pay. Definitely has to tie with this marriage.
他这个挂钩就是他按照我们的传统，他要给我男方父母要给女方父母一笔彩礼钱，而在结婚那天，女方父母需要给一笔嫁妆，需要把这笔彩礼里面的一部分给新娘做嫁妆。这个我们当时是已经给了，我父母已经给了4万给我做嫁妆。
According to the customs, yes, the groom's family should pay a gift of money to the bride's family, and in return, the bride's family would also exchange and give something back to the groom's family. And according to the custom, the money they give to the bride's family, half of it would be, like at least part of it would be in return to the groom's family. And this is the custom, and this is what we did.
I have a few questions.
我有好几个问题
I first want to make clear, I understand that you did not ultimately get a marriage license.
首先我想要知道你好像说最终你们是没有领婚证的，对吗？
对的，在我们相亲的时候，我的父母跟他的父母是谈好的，他 他的父母是答应一定会跟我领结婚证的，但是一直在我们订婚之后就开始催，我父母就已经在催他安排一天的时间跟我一起去领结婚证。
Yes, that is true. Because on the day the two families talked, they have promised we will definitely get the marriage certificate. And the day after we become engaged, actually my family, my parents are following up with his family to make sure that we will definitely get the marriage certificate.
每回我们跟他提去领结婚证，他总是答应说会领的，但是叫他定个时间总是定不出来，总是以餐馆玩做
However,
借
every
口。
time when we try to get, like discuss this and get a concrete date, when are we going to get the marriage certificate? What they respond is always, oh, definitely, we'll get it, but never really give us a date, a firm date that we will definitely go on that day and to get the marriage certificate.
所以这是他完全是他的责任。我这边因为不领结婚证的话，其实对于我来说，我是比较吃亏的，因为。
Yes, and definitely, and because of what his refusal to do so, it's definitely 100% responsibility on him, because without getting the actual marriage certificate, I am actually the one at the disadvantage side.
因为按照我们的传统的风俗，办完结婚宴就是已经结婚了，所以自从我们在19年的7月29号办完婚宴以后，我在所有的亲戚朋友眼里，我已经是一个结过
Because
婚的女人。
according to the Chinese custom, even without the marriage certificate, but once a couple go through the wedding ceremony, the wedding banquet, they are considered officially a marriage couple, married couple.
Sorry.
And so in my relative and their relatives' eyes, after the wedding ceremony, we are married.
然后
I'm sorry.
So that was my follow-up question. Even though you don't have the marriage license, according to your own tradition and custom, what you participated in, you consider yourself married according to your own tradition, right? You moved in with him after the wedding banquet, after all of the ceremonies, correct?
所以这是我的那个 follow up 的问题，就是说，就算你们没有领婚证，但是你们也是走过了这个习俗，这个婚宴这个的婚礼的那个礼仪，所以你就当做自己就已经 consider 自己是结了婚，所以你为什么在婚宴之后你就搬进去，对不对？
对呀。
That's correct.
So I have another question. This case was partially decided on summary judgment. And I understand your argument is that the entire case should be resolved on summary judgment because the money that's being sought is related purely to the marriage issue, correct?
我知道你们的这个案子已经在一个 summary judgment， 就是这个总结性的判决里面已经结案了，或者是有了一个判决，就是说所有你们所用到的、所牵涉的那个钱都是跟这个婚礼有关的，是否已经在那个 summary judgment 里面你是有了一个的判决的，对吗？
不是很清楚。
I'm a little confused.
Okay, let me ask you this. The parties had a stipulation of facts, things that they agreed to. I noticed that there was no agreement as to what that $73,000 represented.
OK， 这样说吧，你们在这个的诉讼里面庭审之前已经说你们双方有过协议，就说在这个案子里面哪一些是共同同意。 就协议说都是你们都同意的那些部分，所以当时说到那个73000块钱你们说到这个是那个彩礼对吗
73000，然后呢
？Okay, so yeah, $73,000, and then.
Okay, so what do you say the $73,000 represents? I understand that you stated after you left, you had to use the money to support yourself, but what ordinarily is supposed to happen to that $73,000?
我知道你说这个73000块钱，在你们就是分开了之后，你动用了那73000块钱，因为你需要去维生维持自己生活等等，所以 我想问的就是，那73000块钱在你来说是代表了什么？或许说它应该是着用是用来做什么的
？73000块钱就是按照我们的风俗，就是男方父母给女方父母的彩礼钱，然后在结婚当天，按照我们的风俗，我的父母给了我4万块钱做嫁妆。
Okay, so the $73,000 dollars in my view is that the bride money or the money, the marriage money exchanged with each other, and on the wedding day, according to the custom, would be a portion of it would be returning to as my dowry, returning to the new family.
按照我们的传统的风俗，只有一婚女人新娘子才有新郎那方才会给女方彩礼钱的。
And according to my local custom, only the bride is first in her first marriage entitled to this wedding gift.
这笔彩礼钱以我的理解，就是作为对新娘子的保障。不过在主要就是防止遇到这个新郎是一个渣男的情况下，他不愿意负担家庭的情况下，新娘是。
And in my understanding, this wedding gift money is actually like a security quote unquote deposit to the bride. So in case if so unfortunate the bride, the husband is not treating the bride well, this money would be like a backup or a security or somehow a safety something to provide to the bride.
就比如新郎在非常短暂的时间内就把新娘抛弃的这种情况，我认为就是这个彩礼钱就可以作为对新娘的保障。
So in my view, in case like this, when the groom or the husband divorce or give up the bride, the wife, in a very short period of time, then this wedding money would be something to compensate or to provide the security needed by to the wife.
在我跟陈金荣住在一起的两个月左右的时间里，他不断的就是以我没有给福州城里2套房子做嫁妆也不因理由，还有另外一个，因为我们一直没有性生活，没怀上孩子，他的父母对我极其不满，在这两个巨大的矛盾面前，他是选择抛弃我。
So in my own case, as you can see, during the time that we lived together for the 2 months, his family was blaming me for not giving them the 2 real estate properties in Fuzhou City. And the second, because we did not have the sex that can help me or get me to be pregnant to give them the child. They used the 2 reasons as a blame on me and gave up on me, and then I think I am entitled to this money.
So
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
this will be my last question. I believe the other side stated that the intention of the money was to go back home and to settle a home. It was not for your security alone. It was for both of you to settle a home together.
这是我的问题。据我所知道，对方他所说到的，他们所视这一笔钱，就是他们看这一笔钱，就是给一个新家庭，是给双方，并不是说这一笔钱只是给你一个人，比如说作为你的安全保障啊什么的，只是给你而已，不是这样的一回事。
他说的这个是有一定的前提就是他愿意跟我继续这段婚姻的情况下。
Well, for that, it's partially true because it's subject to that the fact he's willing or the husband and wife are willing to live together and continue the marriage together.
这是彩礼存在几千年的原因。
And this is, I believe, this is what my belief is, the reason why this custom with the wedding money, why it exists for thousands of years, that is the reason behind to give the security, the protection
就是如果是新娘抛弃新郎的话，是应该适当的 返回一些给他的，但是是新郎抛弃新娘了，这种情况，按照我们的传统风俗是不需要还给他任何一分钱的。
In general, if the wife gave up the husband, definitely the wife, the family from the wife's side should return the money. However, if it's the opposite, if the husband's family or husband gave up on the wife, according to our local custom, the wife doesn't need to return the money to the husband's side.
May I ask a question on that, please?
问题。
So, if you had been married happily and had a fulfilling marriage for a year, and then the husband left, what would the tradition or what would your understanding be about where the $73,000 would have gone?
问题就是，假如说你们的婚姻非常还好，还可以一起起码过了1年，然后在婚姻生活1年之后，那个丈夫离开了这个太太，在你的理解里面，或者是按照你对于这个习俗的了解，那笔彩礼钱73000是怎么样处理的？
一年只有时间的区别是吗？
So you mentioned about just the difference of time, right? You said 1 year.
Or no, just the difference of the marriage. It sounds like this marriage was not successful from the very beginning.
OK，听起来这个你们的婚姻从一开始就不是很成功，所以如果说是1年，你们能够成功，你们一起1年后。
So does that make a difference to you?
所以这个是否成功是一个有分别的地方。
如果婚姻成功的话，我当时手上是我父母给的是按习俗来说，他是拿一部分4万块给我做嫁妆。如果婚姻成功，我们一般评价婚姻成功就是在我们有了共同的孩子之后，那我会会把这笔钱用来哺育我的孩子。
Okay, well, according to the custom, my understanding is that if our marriage is successful, meaning usually mean that we will have our own children, we will bear children, bear child. So if that's the case, portion of that wedding money, half of it, like I would say 40,000 would be my use, and the wife usually will use it for the child. The mother would use that portion of money for the child.
或者是大部分的家庭是这种情况，就是都是在孩子大了以后，这笔钱是用来给孩子作为彩礼或者作为嫁妆的。
And according to tradition, usually that money is not just used for a daily basis, daily expenses. It's most likely used as a wedding money when the child grow up, and when the child needs to pay that wedding money to the other side. So we will use that portion of money. The mothers will leave that money as a fund for the child.
还有一种情况就是在需要用大笔钱，就比如买房子的时候，我也会愿意拿出来的。
And other scenarios to use the money, that portion of money, could be like if the child wants to purchase a real estate property, and the parents would use that money for the child in that way.
然后因为之前他们家曾经我和他的父母对我没有福州城里的2套房子做嫁妆非常的不满意，当时陈金荣后面他有退让了一步，他让我在 Modern 买1套房子做嫁妆，我当时也有同意把这笔钱拿出来买房子，但是因为我的钱不够，我希望他能够凑一点钱。
And when we come back to this $73,000, because his family was so disappointed that my family was only be able to offer the 2 real estate property in Fuzhou, and he actually proposing for us to buy a house in Malden, which is I agreed with him. I had agreed with him, but because it's insufficient, the money is insufficient, I was asking him to chip in more money so we can actually paying the down payment.
Okay, if I can just stop it. Time has expired.
Okay.
You may have 30 seconds to summarize.
好，时间已经到了30秒，你能够做一个总结。
我跟陈金龙的婚姻，我是一直真心实意的想跟他过的，但是他一直，只是他从来就没有真正的想过跟我继续这段婚姻，他只是看中了，他认为我是一个富婆，他口口声声叫我富婆，他一直以为他一直默认我有福州城里的2套房子做嫁妆，是因为这个问题，我们的婚姻才走到尽头，是完全是他的原因，他。
What I have to say is, I am in this relationship, in this marriage, I am completely 100% sincere, and I am doing according to my conscience. However, I don't think Mr. Chen is willing or sincere at all in this marriage, because I believe he was thinking that I'm a rich woman, because he was joking about it, that he thought I am rich, and I have properties, personal, like real estate properties. But however, he was disappointed, or in the very beginning, he's not 100% devoted himself into this marriage, and that is the reason why our marriage is not successful. And I believe 100% responsibility on him.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Chen. Ms. Lee, we will hear from counsel for the plaintiff.
Morning, Your Honors. Edward Hung, I represent plaintiff and appellee Jinlong Chen. At the outset, it's my client's position that the Superior Court's decision on the summary judgment motion was interlocutory in nature, and so without
Understanding that,
Yep.
could you address the language of the statute? Because her argument is that the statute addresses not only liability, but it says, and I quote, "No action, suit, or proceeding shall be maintained therefore." Why doesn't that language suggest that the legislature intended to bar suits on these issues, not just to determine liability?
Well, Your Honor, so there has been case law that has come up through the courts, and the one case we've relied on with respect to the motion to dismiss that was brought before the Superior Court and the motion for summary judgment was Al-Kahiri v. Ahmad. And in that case, it involved Saudi Arabian customs, where
That's not an appellate case, correct?
It's 33 Mass L Report 260.
So that's a Superior Court case?
And in that case, Your Honor, it involved a father paying for fiance, who was the husband at the time, his rent, his medical school bills, preparing for the wedding. He lavished him with gifts. And in that case, the court ruled against the father because it was prior to the marriage. It wasn't, those monies weren't, and those gifts were not meant to be used during the marriage. However, in that case, the court ruled that the donor is entitled to restitution if the gift is an engagement ring, a family heirloom, or other similar thing intimately connected with the marriage. And based on the customs of Fuzhou and Fujian province, where these folks are from, the putting of money, the elaborate, putting of money in a red envelope, and the fact that they went through a process of matchmaking, family meetings, getting to know each other, and even as Ms. Chen acknowledges today, that she was supposed to reciprocate as well. All of those things lend to the fact that, yes,
As I understand the argument on reciprocation, it is there are no set norms. You pay what you can. That's the argument, at least. Do you disagree with that?
Well, and I think that's what the Superior Court left open, which is that there are material disputes of facts, even between the parties on how these customs play out in terms of cash exchanges. My client's position has always been that they were going to have a small, everything culminated in a banquet celebration in Boston, Chinatown. They were going to get a marriage license. They were going to return to Changla district, which is the provincial town they're from in Fuzhou, China, and have a very big celebration. All of that, it was a long-term process that involved reciprocation by wife's family as well, not wife, but Ms. Chen's family as well.
Going back to Judge Singh's question about if there was a conditional gift, what was the condition? Was it actual legal Massachusetts marriage, or was it the wedding banquet? Because there is testimony in the record from your client's mother, for example, that the payment was key to getting Ms. Chen to move in and cohabitate. And it can be argued, at least, that the condition was going through the wedding ceremony, wedding banquet, the term you use in your complaint, and getting her to move in, such that to the extent there was a conditional gift, the condition had been satisfied. How do you respond to that?
So it's my client's position that this was to put it the best I can, a continuous, as I mentioned before, a continuous back and forth between the families. They were going to be, and I say quote unquote, properly married in China, because that is what they were aiming for. They wanted to go back during the Lunar New Year. These funds were meant to be communal funds to be used during their marriage, not after some kind of spat where, she started using it for her own tuition and her own expenses. It was not. There is a dispute of facts in terms of what my client's expectations were for this money and her expectations, Your Honor.
Can you just address for me why and to what extent, if so, cultural or traditional norms from another country ought to inform our analysis of legal relationships or obligations here in Massachusetts?
I think that at first blush, somebody might look at it and say, well, it's just money, it was a gift, and be done with it. But then they would not be, they wouldn't be before a trial of fact, either a judge or jury, listening to the testimony of my client and his mother, of matchmaking, of family meetings, going to your place of work, and making sure that husband, had lawful employment, the wedding banquet, which was attended by friends and family who also gave red envelopes full of cash, also with the expectation that they were at a wedding celebration, Your Honor.
That money is not at issue in this case.
No, that money is not at issue.
What happened to that money?
Appellant, this appellant was also in possession of that money and presumably spent it as well, Your Honor.
But your argument for why your suit is proper notwithstanding the statute, is based on it being a conditional gift, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And I assume you would acknowledge that there is no current appellate case drawing the analogy between this sort of payment and an engagement ring.
No, and the case that I cited, Al-Khari v. Ahmed, did specifically talk about heirlooms, engagement rings, and something intimately connected to, so, for example, in that matter, if there was a Saudi Arabian custom and that was exercised or used, and that was before the court, I believe the court would have used that analysis to analyze whether or not father should get that back.
So 2 questions on that. So why then, under that analysis, shouldn't the simple return of the 2, she says, $10 rings suffice?
Because that's
Secondly,
not...
okay, go ahead. Answer that one.
Sorry, Your Honor.
No, go. I asked you a question, didn't let you answer, so go ahead.
Because, Your Honor, those are Western customs, and those aren't things that a couple from Fujian province, and as appellant has indicated, you know, hundreds of years of custom that they were following. That's just something, you know, that it wasn't that. The money is the intimate thing that is connected to this union or this potential union. They were going to settle together. They were going to make a life together with my client's life savings. And she was going to reciprocate. She acknowledges that. And the timing of it, you know, I think, Justice Brennan, you mentioned, well, everything fell apart at the beginning. It certainly did. I mean, it really did fall apart. And that should be something the trier of fact should adjudicate.
But when would the whole thing be consummated? When you,
You're talking about...
again, getting back to the conditional gift, when is the condition met?
So in terms of I don't know that there's an exact date necessarily. I think it has to do more with the fact that this was a process that was going to take time, and that time was up to and including a wedding banquet over Lunar New Year in China in their hometown. And that was going to be several months later.
Okay. I just want to, I understand that the position is that there's disputed issues of fact regarding that, but that's what you're...
That's my client's position, yes.
How is such a payment the same as or different from an engagement ring?
Well, culturally speaking, it's bringing two families together. There's a trust factor involved, Your Honor, with the reciprocity that was supposed to happen and did not happen. That might have played into whether or not my client was going to file a lawsuit. Because if there had been, there's no dispute, Your Honor, that this was a one-way giving of money in red envelopes, the ritual that was done over a period of 2 days. And it's important also in the culture that it be done in cash. It wasn't a wire transfer, it wasn't a check, it wasn't by Venmo or Zelle, you know, it was by cash. And that sitting and having tea and talking and counting the money.
And the chicken egg.
So actually, it's an interesting point. So is it your position that the red envelope, that with the cash is really part of the symbolism, and if they were flipping money through Venmo or here's my credit card, you know, have a nice day, that it wouldn't be the same?
It would be meaningless. It would be meaningless.
Okay.
It would be, you know, go buy yourself something nice for, you know, for dinner. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But you seem to acknowledge that the payment in part was to secure her promise to marry. And so explain why this is not in part a lawsuit to enforce a marriage contract.
Well, Your Honor, so we understand that, what the difficulties of 47A and finding a way to navigate it. There was a fraud component to the case at the outset. We did discovery depositions. The lower court decided that there was no fraud. So what we're left with.
Decided there was no fraud, or decided it hadn't been pled with particularity?
That there was no fraud, Your Honor, I believe. But the court did specifically say that the court did leave counts 1 and 2 open because there are specific material disputes of facts that may proceed to trial. So the fact that appellant and appellee are here, either arguing who mistreated who or when this conditional gift was, quote unquote, supposed to happen and what led to that is something that we believe a trier of fact should decide on.
Now, you, in the underlying case, are arguing for return of all the money.
That's correct.
If you're correct that the money was, in a sense, an advance on the marital estate, why shouldn't this be treated, in effect, as the marital estate that should be apportioned under whatever equitable factors are set forth in the divorce laws?
Well, Your Honor, they never got married, either in China or in the Commonwealth or any other state or jurisdiction. So his only remedy was to come to Superior Court.
So your position is there is no marriage unless you have the license?
Yes.
Do you understand, at least from my perspective, there's a conflict here that you want us to apply, it seems to me, strict Massachusetts law when it suits your client, but then traditional Chinese customs also when it suits your client, as opposed to strict law, statutory interpretation?
Well, Your Honor, I think we can incorporate everything that has been said by appellant and my client's position into all of that. She spoke extensively today about, and directed questions from you about what she thought the money was for, when it was appropriate, what circumstances she believed it was appropriate to return it, and the fact is that, again, this marriage fell apart the relationship fell apart basically immediately, and that we're seeking equitable remedies here, conversion and money hadn't received.
I think we're more or less out of our questions. The floor is still yours, if you would.
So, Your Honor, just in conclusion, we're requesting that the court deny appellant's appeal of the court's the interlocutory order. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I do have just something I want to say to the parties. The case, needless to say, is an extremely interesting one, and we will do our role in resolving the appeal as it has been presented to us. That said, there is something inherently unseemly about a court of law delving into the highly intimate personal details of this relationship. And if ever there were a case that is amenable to resolution outside the courtroom, it would appear to be this one. And I know the parties made an attempt at settlement, and for whatever reasons, that did not bear fruition. But as we do our job in resolving the case before us, we urge you not to use this litigation as an impediment to the parties resolving this matter amicably to the extent possible. So,
Thank you, Your Honor. I would just note that,
just please, no details about the settlement talks, because
right,
we don't want to hear those.
of course, I would just note that Ms. Chen's prior counsel has just withdrawn from the Superior Court case, which gives me the opportunity to speak to her freely now. Thank you.
Well, perhaps you can use the opportunity out in the hallway.
Thank you, Your Honors. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. This concludes our sitting. Our thanks to the court officers, the clerks, and especially Interpreter Lee for her role here today. The case is submitted, and we are adjourned.